All right, we're live now.
Good morning, everyone. We would like to welcome you to the Arts Learning Project Grant panel. My name is Jana Goranson, and on behalf of the Arts Council, I'd like to welcome you to this panel meeting. We have convened to review applications in the Arts Learning Project Grant category, and decisions made by this panel will determine the funding for all the applications, and then they will further be reviewed by the Nebraska Arts Council at our next meeting, which will happen on June 10th. To begin, I'd like for each panelist to introduce yourselves to one another and to anyone that is listening in, and I will call on you one by one. So we will begin with Kathleen Husted.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Husted, and I'm the Director of Education at Omaha Performing Arts.
Thank you, Kathleen. Julie Jacobson.
Hi, I'm Julie Jacobson from North Platte. I'm a Nebraska Arts Council board member.
And next is Beatriz Rodriguez.
Hi, I'm Beatriz Rodriguez, and I am a studio arts professor at Wayne State College.
And our final panelist is Cody Tallarico.
Hi, I'm Cody Tallarico. I'm the Arts Education Specialist at the Nebraska Department of Education. And before coming to the department, I taught music for the Bellevue Public Schools. I'm also a professional musician in the Omaha area.
Thank you. I appreciate all you panelists joining us today and giving us your expert advice. In addition to these panelists, the Nebraska Arts Council staff members present today include Mike Markey, our Executive Director, Ann Alston, a Program Specialist, Jennifer Drybelbus, Grants Administrator, and she will be managing the scoring in our online grant system, Joshua Brown, Program Coordinator, who will be taking minutes, and Sam Hennig, our Communications Manager, and he'll be on hand to assist with any technical issues we have regarding our online platform. So to begin, Mike, would you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Jana, and thank you very much for your leadership with this panel. I appreciate it very much. You're taking the time. I thank the staff for helping to make this happen today behind the scenes. I thank Anne for putting this panel together, and I congratulate her for putting together such an erudite group of folks from all over the state. Finally, I thank everybody out there who put together an application, who put these projects together. Your work's very important, the vital work of arts education in our state. And I thank you for your time to put the projects together and to put the applications together. You've got a wonderful panel that will have all sorts of very good suggestions and comments and criticisms for you today. And I encourage you to take to heart everything that they have to say. And if you have any questions on the back end, please reach out. We're always glad to discuss them with you. Then I want to also thank you for your ongoing work to let the public know and your public servant, your elected officials know about the value of your work and the value of public funding for the arts here in the state and also federally. It's important for you to reach out to your elected officials, not only here in the state of Nebraska, but at the congressional level, to let them know the value of public funding for the arts, the difference it makes with your projects, with your community, so much more now than ever. And I encourage you to keep that up, to let them know what you're doing, to invite them to come participate in your projects, and especially to thank them afterwards again for the work that you do, for the work that they do, and the importance of public funding for the arts. Finally, I want to let you know that we have an opening here at the Arts Council. We need a director of administration. If you're good with the books and you want to come work for the Arts Council, help us take care of our administrative end, then I encourage you to reach out to the state job site, or you can always touch base here with us at the Arts Council. We'd be glad to talk with you. Or if you know somebody else, pass the word along. That's it. Thank you, Jana. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you, Mike. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
So we'll begin this process by having Anne. She'll discuss a little bit about the Arts Learning Project program and how the panel process works.
Yes, so for the audience members who are joining us today on YouTube, please take a moment
and add your name in the comment box because we really appreciate knowing who was able to join for this meeting. And a reminder to the panelists that even though you cannot see or hear the audience can see and hear you. We plan to take a short break each hour, approximately at the top of the hour, but we can also take a break if anyone here requests it. Just let us know through the chat or one way or another, and we can take a break if needed. Whenever we do take a break, we will let everyone know, and we will stop the live stream for that period, and we will announce at what time we will reconvene, and we'll restart the live stream at that time. Regarding the panel process, so panelists have received and read all applications in advance. Each application has been assigned a primary and secondary reviewer. Applications will be discussed and then individually scored by each panelist according to the published NAC criteria for this grant category. The panelist scores will then be averaged and the applications will be ranked according to that average score from highest to lowest. Panelists will then determine which of the applications merit funding based on those scores. Later on, a mathematical formula will be applied to determine the grant award amounts for those grants that are approved for funding. Award calculations will be based on the averaged score for each application, as well as the available funds in this category. Essentially, higher ranking applications will receive a greater percentage of their request. Finally, NAC staff members, me and anyone else on our staff who is here, will really not engage in panel discussions except to add clarification if needed about a particular grant or procedure or scoring rubric. But generally, the panelists themselves will carry forth with the discussion. The applications will be discussed in alphabetical order. A copy of the order of applications is available on the NAC website. Today, we have 9 applications to review. And with that, I think we're ready, Jana, if you want to get us started.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Are there any additional questions among the panelists? Okay, if there are none, Anne will provide a brief synopsis of each application, and then I will call on the panelists one by one. First, the primary reviewer, then the secondary reviewer, and then our 2 additional reviewers. So we will now proceed with the first application, which is Circle Theater's project of Peach Boy of Japan Cultural Dance and Music Workshop. And Anne will give a brief synopsis to begin.
Okay, as a reminder, this proposal is to support the teaching artist fees associated with cultural dance and movement workshops based on the Peach Boy of Japan. The project will take place in October and November of 2025. Circle Theater anticipates serving 500 young people ages 12 to 21 across 10 schools and organizations, including students in the OPS Alternative Curriculum and Transitions programs.
Thank you, Anne. And we will begin with the primary reviewer, Julie.
Thank you. I was very excited to read this arts learning project. And I'd like to start off, first of all, with Anne gave you the project overview, and I would just like to say I appreciated their well-written narrative, and the support materials that they provided were excellent. Showcasing Executive Artistic Director Francil, who has worked extensively within the world of theater for young audiences for over 20 years. He's a professional playwright, director, and producer, as well as using I feel it's the arts education value is important to the 10 Omaha schools and the 500 participants. the qualifications of the artists involved. Courtney Stein Harncross is a Nebraska Arts Council roster artist. Her bio indicated that she has a master's degree in dance anthology from London, and she has worked professionally with 4 opera companies. So I give them high marks in artistic quality for the qualifications of the artists and the arts education value. As we scroll on down to the topics of planning and evaluation, they listed in their narrative the program aimed to achieve specific learning outcomes. However, with students of disabilities, but I would have liked to have seen more measurable goals listed as to how they were going to evaluate those. The academic learning was a little more specific as it occurred by teaching students, and they did a very nice job in the narrative describing, I thought, in depth the different Japanese things that they would, identifying the learning needs and goals and sharing those from a previous project in one of the support materials to give us a better idea of what they would be doing with this project. They use surveys to evaluate their project, which is the feedback from cast and backstage crews, stakeholders, and then they have artistic staff note those challenges. Nothing was listed on administrative costs, marketing, or publicity, so I didn't know if this was all volunteer in nature or who was handling that. So sometimes when you're writing a grant, you just, that's so plain to you, but you don't document it for the panel to read. And then the budget did not cover what is asked for in the narrative. However, it left me with a few questions that were unanswered for the grant panel. So on outreach, the useful information about demographics they had documented. The programs are free of cost for the participants, making them accessible to all of the demographics that they listed. And they are very sensitive to the school-specific needs by getting input from the educators. They not only target helping those individuals with disabilities, but they also engage the general population, which I thought was very good. They do a very good job of outreach and engagement in the Omaha area, and had letters of support from teachers included. That's my primary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
We will now proceed with our secondary reviewer, Kathleen.
I thought that this was a very strong application. I really love that the students get to explore traditional Japanese puppetry, music, dance, and storytelling. I thought that it was very solid overall in terms of the planning, and the outreach and engagement was really impressive in terms of the number of students that they'll be serving, and the fact that they're including students in the transition program. So this was a very inclusive project in my mind, and I have nothing to add.
Thank you, Kathleen. Beatrice, do you have anything to add?
No, that was very thorough. The concerns that were brought up were essentially my same, just essentially about the measurable goals. But everything else looked really good. I think this is a very inclusive and good program for the community.
Thank you, Beatrice. And finally, Cody, do you have any comments to add?
I echo the same questions that were brought up with the planning and evaluation. I wasn't quite sure kind of what all of the different sessions would look like. One of the things I noticed on the timeline, it references the Wizard of Oz, and that wasn't referenced in their grant application specifically any other places. I'd also like to note that the letter of support that came from a teacher with an unidentified acronym. So I wasn't sure what that program was, and would just encourage the applicant to spell out any acronyms. We live in a world of alphabet soup, so if you don't know, you're just not sure. But I thought the project served a specific need within the community and the Omaha Public Schools.
Thank you, Cody. I'll now give the panelists a little bit of time if they need to look at their scores or adjust their scores. And when you complete it, if you would give me a thumbs up to know we're ready to move on, please. Okay, thank you very much. We will now move on to our second application, which is Here, Nebraska. And the project is Beat Making and Fashion Clubs at the Bay. And Anne will give us a brief synopsis.
Yes, this grant will help support the costs for staffing of Here, Nebraska, or Rabble Mills fashion and beat making clubs and camps that will take place between January, I'm sorry, I had to double check the dates, January of 2026 and June 30th of 2026. They anticipate a total of up to 500 young people in Lincoln and in Omaha who will be served through the clubs and camps during this time frame. The youth's experiences will culminate in live DJ performances, fashion shows, and photo shoots of custom created fashion pieces.
Thank you, Anne. We'll proceed with our first reviewer, Beatrice.
Yes. Okay. So for this project, I thought it was really interesting mixing two types of art forms. You have the visual arts and you have music and performing arts, and it really brings in completely different types of students, types of people that are interested in different things, and they're coming together. Now, that, the educational value, I thought it was well detailed, the event, the classes, the way that everything was planned. I think it was very thorough. The participating teachers and mentors. I saw quite a bit more of the music and performing parts and a bit less of the fashion part. And that just made me feel like it was a little bit unbalanced in that regard. But I did really enjoy all of the examples that were provided, and you can really tell that the students, they really enjoy the project and what comes out of it. And I believe there was a lot more fashion though, which was interesting with the details. Like there was a lot more fashion than it was the music. So that was the part for examples and educational value. I think the planning, it looks good, and I like that they added details of how their programming has changed and evolved depending on the feedback collected previously. So that's a good show of that, of growth. Maybe just a little bit more would have been nice. And then I believe the last note that I have is that it was an interesting thing to add a survey as letter of support at the end. I thought it gave it a lot of different opinions and views of how this program has impacted the community. I think that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Beatrice. Our secondary reviewer is Cody.
And thank you for that application as well. I have found the project to be really intriguing and insightful. Having taught GarageBand and things like that before, that kind of spoke to me, and I think it's a great way to capture students' interests and involve them in the arts, both through the electronic use of music, but then also through the fashion design. With the planning and evaluation, the grant application identified the standards, even though they necessarily didn't code them. The language of the arts education standards in the state were explained, and I thought they did a nice job identifying what those standards were and working it in, especially if you're not familiar with those. There is extensive program evaluation, both in the pre and post. They also included statistical analyses of the evaluations from both students, caregivers, and the project, which I thought made the grant application really strong. One of the things I quite wasn't sure about in the budget was the cost between rent in Lincoln versus Omaha was significantly different. One of the things that I noted was that the session had well-developed plans for each of the sessions where they were engaging the students. And the organization does a lot of outreach within both the Lincoln and the Omaha communities, has many different partners, which goes to the strength of the program, and they're really trying to understand what the partner may need. So they're not necessarily looking for this is what we have, but really working and collaborating with that partner as they move around and provide programming in different communities and different areas as well. I also thought it was interesting that the support materials were surveys. The surveys were so short, it didn't have the same voice that I've seen as far as the support of the grant. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Cody. Julie, do you have any additional comments?
I just want to give them a compliment for a very strong budget and timeline. I'm a math person, and so I really appreciate the strength of the grant. And that's evidenced by the partners that they have with the foundation support from Peter Kiewit, Scott Family, Lozier, and Swanson Foundations. They would have not received that support if they did not have a strong grant system. So thank you very much to the writers. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Kathleen?
I echo that. I thought that this was a very impressive application, and it sounds like a fantastic project for the community. So I have nothing further to add.
Thank you. I'll let the panelists look at their scores, and please give me a thumbs up when you finalized them. Okay. We will now proceed to our third application. Leggy Music Entertainment will present, I hope I say this right, Isa Vibe Junior Workshop. Anne?
Yeah, I actually spoke with the applicant. It's Lege Entertainment.
Lege, okay.
Yeah, its pronunciation is a little tricky. Okay, so and I'm reading it as is a vibe. It like
Is the vibe,
like
okay?
it's a vibe. But I don't know for sure. So nonetheless, the NAC grant request is to support Is a Vibe Juniors Workshop, a 6-week youth music and comedy program in North Omaha, fostering performance skills and confidence. Hosted at North Omaha Community Partnership with a final showcase at the Backline Comedy Theater, they will engage 8 to 10 youth per session with 8 enrichment teachers. Funds will cover teacher stipends, space rental, marketing, supplies, catering, and insurance for a sustainable impact.
Thank you, Anne. So our primary reviewer for this is Cody.
And thank you, Jana. So as I was reading this grant application, I appreciated the story that they were trying to tell. And as I was reading it, I kept wanting to know a little bit more detail, a little bit more about the arts learning that was happening through the grant application. And so in review of the grant application, the artistic merits of the application, I don't know that I was quite able to grasp. The curriculum is very heavily geared towards comedy, and it brought in elements of theatrical performance and media arts as well, but I couldn't tell to what extent the media arts, the participants, the students, and I think some adults were included, were actually involved in doing the media arts part of it, as far as there weren't any specific outcomes that I noted. Also, I remember seeing that the artist bio was for like the project founder, perhaps, But then there were no artist bios for the professional comedians that were listed in the grant application, the videographer, nor the musicians that were listed. And so, again, that left me questioning the artistic merit because I simply don't recognize those individual names that were listed in the grant application. The primary work sample was a video that was put together, and it had music that was dubbed over it, so I couldn't really get a true representation of the artistic merits and the product of, or the arts learning that's happening, because all I could see was action with music dubbed on top of it. And so, so it, again, just really was not clear on what the intended outcomes and product was, or the learning for this particular grant application. There's been, as far as planning and evaluation, there was extensive planning that was listed, several different Google Drive like session plans and lists to all the materials. I really appreciated that. A lot of focus on social, emotional, and 21st learning skills, and I felt that that made the grant application very strong. Also, the grant focused on a particular demographic that has been historically underserved, and so that was exciting to see. One of the things that I noticed, though, as I was looking, the grant application talked about music instruction, and in those session plans, all I could find was a lip sync battle, and I'm not sure how that could be categorized as music instruction. The project application listed extensive outreach and community support, and goes to several different organizations and kind of paints a whole picture to support the participants.
Okay, thank you, Cody. And now we will go to Kathleen for the secondary reviewer.
I also appreciated the emphasis on the social emotional learning, and I also appreciated the broad concepts that were being brought to the table. It sounded really exciting that students would have the opportunity to engage in music, comedy, videography, some industry, business, and finance, even some production skills. But a number of my questions were mentioned by Cody. I was hoping for a little more detail in terms of who these industry professionals were. I was also a little curious about how they were selecting participants. I think that it was mentioned that between 8 and 10 per session were being served. And I was wondering, did they have to turn any students away? And if so, was there a process for selecting who got to participate in each workshop? I did appreciate the extensive curriculum that was provided in the links through the planning. Although after digging in, there were a few links that didn't work quite right. And I did have some of the same questions about the music piece. So a bit more detail there, I think, would be helpful. I really love the extensive evaluation tools. And I was also curious in the budget about teacher donations. I wasn't sure if that was referring to the teaching artists who were leading the sessions, if they were also then donating something in addition to their time. I really liked that they have a number of partnerships to support the program, and that they are live streaming some of the sessions. So I'm curious how many they intend to serve through the live stream component, and if that's something that is done every time or only a few times. I also appreciated the letters from the partners, but I was hoping to hear a little more from participants and from parents, because the way it's described in the narrative, it seems like this is very important to the community. So it would have been wonderful to hear participants or their caregivers speak to that. But overall, I think it sounds like a very exciting and engaging project.
Thank you, Kathleen. Julie, do you have anything to add?
Actually, a lot of the questions that I wanted answered, Cody kind of addressed. on some of the weak areas in our artistic quality. On outreach, the letter of support from NEAM, they receive funds from grants. So I agree with Kathleen, it would have made the grant stronger to bring in letters of support from some of the participants that had used the project in the past. So thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Julie. And Beatrice.
Yes, a lot of it has been touched on already, so I'll just add just a little bit. As I was reading this grant, I felt like there was always a little bit of information missing where I wish I would have known it sooner. And then it was listed probably towards the end. So in order to improve this application, I would start mentioning more of like numbers and expected groups of people that is to impact in the community, more statistics about the community to paint a better picture of the impact that it will have. So I think it was missing numbers for me to get a better picture of the overall impacted community.
Thank you, Beatrice. I will now let the panelists look at your scores, and after finalization, if you could please give me a thumbs up. All right. We will proceed with our next application from the Lincoln Music Teachers Association and their project, the Music Outreach Program.
So the Lincoln Music Teacher Association, their outreach program provides affordable private music lessons to resource-limited students. The grant funds from the Arts Council will help pay for music teachers, educational materials, instruments for students who participate in weekly lessons in the fall of 2025 semester. Approximately 50 students will participate in the program next year.
Thanks, Anne. Cody, you're our primary reviewer for this project.
Yes, and thank you so much for this grant application. I really enjoyed reading about the project and learning about the work of the Lincoln Music Teachers Association and the music teachers that are involved with the project. Some of the things that I noticed is that Lincoln Music Teachers Association really has a history of encouraging the level of professional music teaching of their members, and so that really spoke to the artistic merit of the project. I also noted that the program was not only for piano, but other instruments as well, and that there were times where additional lessons or second instruments were offered to students who excelled in their musical studies. For the planning and evaluation, the project is very individualized to each student. It identifies and aligns to the Arts Education Perform standards. I also noted that the project included tickets to the Lead Center's piano series concert and encouraged applicants to explore the standards in the Respond artistic process as well. And I'm sorry, I would encourage the application to include those Respond standards. It would just strengthen it because that Respond and listening is so essential to music study. Also, there was improvisation, so it's not just about learning how to play your instrument, but also giving the opportunity for students to create. The evaluation statistics were pretty incredible. The family support I noticed was very high, and 100% of the teachers noted positive impact on the kids, and 100% of the students noted positive impact as well. The program has several different partners within the Lincoln area. As far as demographics, they use the free and reduced price meal eligibility as proxy for socioeconomic status to identify students that are able to participate in the project. But beyond that, they also include third tier families as well. So perhaps those families that no longer qualify for free and reduced price meals in the school system, but still have a financial need. And in the program, participants are invited to perform in the community as well at nonprofit events or senior homes or just different community areas, organizations. And so being able to take what they've learned and then also to provide a service to the community.
Thank you, Cody. And our secondary reviewer is Julie.
Hi, I loved this grant as well. It was extremely strong in artistic quality. Hats off to the grant writer. She left nothing, unturned as far as, and I also appreciated that it's a very inclusive project for students preschool through high school seniors. And so I just thought this was amazing. The teacher artist bios were absolutely excellent, as well as the administration of the project, which is very important, using Ms. Grimpo, who is a music professor at Seward Concordia. So it was an amazing grant for strength, artistically, as well as in the planning. Every standard was listed. As far as, I love to see this, and the parameters that were listed to get measurable goals that directly correlated with these educational standards. He already spoke to demographics and evaluations, and it was an amazing detailed timeline. And let's see, as far as outreach, it's an award-winning program as well, with affordable music lessons to all of the underserved in Lincoln. So kudos. Yeah.
Thanks, Julie.
Mhm.
Beatrice, do you have any additional comments?
No, I just want to point out that this was a fantastic application. It was very thorough and very strong.
Thanks. And Kathleen?
Yeah, I thought this was a very strong application, and I have nothing further to add.
Thank you. Panelists, please review your scores and let me know when you are done. Okay, thank you. Our next application is from the Nebraska Art Teachers Association regarding their 2025 Fall Conference. Anne, if you would give us an overview, please.
Here we go. Yes, so the NATA Fall Conference is held annually in different locations around Nebraska. The 2025 Fall Conference will be October 17th and 18th in several locations within Omaha. The Nebraska Arts Council grant funds will support conference programming, specifically expenses associated with keynote speakers, conference keynote messages, member presentation workshops, a member art exhibit, and an awards banquet will support learning, networking, and creating for Nebraska arts educators in attendance.
Thanks, Anne. Our primary reviewer is Beatrice.
Yes, as an educator myself, I really appreciate this sort of project. I think it is really important for teachers and art educators of all types to have this sort of gathering where they can learn and network, and it plays a big role into their growth, and it's something that they can bring back to the community. So it's something that is hard to measure in its overall impact, but I do believe that it has a big impact in the long term of things. For the application, when it came to the goals, I thought it was, the layout was cohesive and understandable. I wish there was a little bit more of concrete dates, but it is something that they planned out the whole entire year. However, the examples of the previous conference, I thought those were pretty thorough and thought through. Though not all project goals, I found they were measurable. Some of them were a little bit abstract, so just a bit more cohesion there. And but I did appreciate that they put examples of where the evaluation process has helped in the growth and changing of this conference. For the outreach and impact, there was a lot of explanation of the locations in which the conference took place. I wish there was a bit more of the demographic that it will serve. I the the keynote speaker that they're planning on getting, it's going to deal with public art. So I think that that's going to be something good to add for the community, and it could impact communities at large for the educators to get this understanding of, public art and how they can bring it back into their classrooms. Yes, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Beatrice. And Julie is our secondary reviewer.
Hi, Beatrice did a nice job in explaining the strengths and weaknesses. One thing I'd like to add to the artistic quality, she explained that the value of the arts education in the project overview and the narrative. However, the qualification of the artist, I had a hard time identifying. I would have liked a little bit more information on that. To be able to know if the artists involved in the project were really qualified to lead and be speakers. Then the only other area was in outreach and engagement. Anne kind of touched on that the project conference for any TA members, but they do open it up, I guess, for the public, for speakers, which goes beyond their scope. I do like that they have several partners listed for this Omaha conference, the Joslyn Art Museum, Benson Creative District, and the Samuel Back Museum. So they're donating meeting space. So that was a very good planning. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Kathleen, do you have anything additional to add?
No, I have nothing to add. I think it was covered by the other panelists.
Thank you. And Cody?
I echo what Julie said as far as the artists that were involved with the keynotes. When I went to click on the website, the link that was provided for the keynote, the website is broken. So I was not able to ascertain if that artist, anything really about that artist. And so, and then one thing I noticed in the planning and evaluation is that the floor map includes a space for vendors. And so I think that that's an opportunity for the organization as well. And as far as outreach and engagement, I did note that the application, in the application, and it includes not only teachers who are in classrooms and school settings, but also teachers who are in non-school settings, such as museums and other organizations.
Thank you, Cody. Now, if the panelists would review your scores and let me know when you're ready to proceed, please. Okay. Our next grant proposal is from the Omaha Home for Boys with their project, The Street Percussion at OHB. Anne?
Yes. Okay, grant funding from the Arts Council will provide another year's worth of music instruction in encore performance, they say, to youth at Omaha Home for Boys, helping them to relieve stress, grow self-confidence, increase focus, be creative, and to practice emotional expression in a positive way. Music instruction will be delivered by Omaha Street Percussion to students at the OHB school and other youth. In 2024, 68% of these youth reported they had never before participated in any extracurricular activities.
Thank you, Anne. Cody, you are our primary reviewer.
Yes, and I really appreciated reading this project. I thought this grant application, I felt like the project really sounded like a very engaging way to reach the participants in the project. I noticed that the Omaha Street Percussion has a history of engaging performances, but has also branched into leading drum and music instruction around the area. But the Omaha Home for Boys staff is also involved in especially helping identify students for the project, making sure that it's going to be a good fit for the students. One of the strengths of the project, I felt, was that the youth can join at any time. There are opportunities built in for various points of entry. You don't just have to start at the beginning, which so often is the time in music programs, that if you miss that point of entry, then you either can't join or you have to wait an entire academic year. I thought it was really a an amazing way to re-engage youth who have been disengaged from traditional educational experiences. For planning and evaluation, the project aligned to the standards and also to social emotional standards of expression and stress relief and confidence building. A lot of work was done showing how students are creating using the standards in the create artistic process. I would encourage them to also align to the perform, respond, and connect artistic processes, because I am sure that those are also being, those standards are also being addressed within this project. The Omaha Home for Boys has extensive community partners and outreach. They really are trying to engage youth in a variety of different ways. They have more than 30 community partnerships in the North Omaha community, and they also do extensive analyses from different zip codes too, and that the zip codes that are involved are typically those that have low poverty markers. And so one of the things it would encourage them is to look at how their project could be used at different events beyond just the school, but perhaps, or beyond just the Omaha Street Percussion, but perhaps events that are at the school as well.
Thank you, Cody. Beatrice is our secondary reviewer.
Yes, that was very thorough. There's not a lot for me to add. I think this is a very strong application, and it's an important program that I believe in. I really appreciated all the examples that they added. You can really tell that the youth are really engaged and enjoy the program, and that the group, the percussion group, the bio that they included, you can really get a sense of the feeling of camaraderie, and that it's so easy for the youth to relate to, especially when they have been struggling, and something like education in this setting can be a little bit intimidating to start in, but they really make themselves super approachable. So I think this is a great program for students in need. Now, the only thing that I would wanted to see a little bit more were examples of like concrete methods of collecting feedback via surveys and using that to improve. There was a bit more of word of mouth, but just wanted to know like how are they keeping track of these changes? And that's all I got.
Thanks, Beatrice. Julie, any additional comments?
You know, what a fun experience. I do want to compliment them on their student evaluations. They were evaluated measurably on rhythm, technique, listening skills, improvisational technique, and teamwork. And all of that was identified, and I appreciate it very much. The only question I have is, how do I sign up? You know?
Right. Thank you, Julie. And Kathleen.
I thought this application was absolutely fantastic, really exciting, really important for the community.
Thanks, Kathleen. The panelists would finalize scores, please, and let me know when you're finished. Okay, thank you. Our next project is from the Renaissance Performing Arts Company, and their project is for their company season of 25-26. Anne?
Okay. This proposal is to assist with costs, associated in running a pre-professional musical theater training program open to any Omaha student. The program will impact over 30 students from the ages of 12 to 18 who will train and travel to an international musical theater festival representing Nebraska in February of 2026. It will contribute to the cost of community performances of Hadestown, a student-directed program later in April, and community events. That's summary.
Thanks, Anne. And Kathleen, excuse me, is our primary reviewer.
I thought, based on the narrative, that it had high artistic quality with a strong local team of musical theater professionals and also industry professionals as guest artists. But I was wondering, beyond that core team of local professionals, who the industry professionals were, who are these guest artists, and what's their selection process? I appreciated that there were multiple touch points throughout the year with their musical theater competition team, the production of Hadestown classes, and I also did appreciate the broad range of classes that they mention, including performance skills, but also some business skills, and the student-directed showcase. I am curious if all students participate in all aspects of the program, or do they participate in some but not others, and how that process works. I was also curious if all students were selected through an audition, and if so, are some turned away, and what that process looked like. I appreciated the video work samples from some of their past productions. I did make a note that the secondary work sample talks about serving students ages 7 to 11. And I'm curious how that plays into some of their goals, and how many of the students are in that mini company ages 7 to 11 versus 12 to 18, and if there is a difference in the content and the curriculum for the different age ranges. In terms of planning and evaluation, I appreciated that they included state standards. Their project goals, I felt, were strong in terms of building those skills in theater, dance, music, and overall industry training. I am curious if these goals shift as they look at the different age groups, and even within that age range of 12 to 18, if they're looking at middle school versus high school students. I did appreciate that there's a lot of individual evaluation, and that things seem to be catered to the individual student. They mentioned that student videos were potentially a part of the evaluation process. I wasn't sure if that was facilitated by their faculty or what that looked like, but I was interested in that method of evaluation. Their timeline, I felt, was solid, but I wanted more detail on student time spent at classes versus rehearsals versus this national competition, just to give a sense of how much time these students were engaged in the program. I think that it would give a fuller picture, because there are so many activities listed, to get a sense of, what does this actually look like for a student? In terms of budget, they did mention that they're charging students tuition, and I believe scholarships are mentioned, but I'm curious how many scholarships are available and what financial aid looks like for them. What's the process for awarding that financial aid? Also, in terms of the budget, some areas are broken down in terms of, what expense goes with what piece of their offering, but some of them aren't. So I had a few questions about some of the expenses. Also, I noticed they do mention the guest artist component with some of the industry professionals, but I don't see any artist fees for that listed in their budget, or if it was included, it wasn't broken out, so I wasn't sure where that expense was. There's also mention of a benefit concert, but I didn't know if that was something that was for future years, or if that was impacting their programming for the 25-26 season. For outreach and engagement, they mentioned serving students across the Omaha area and surrounding communities. And they mentioned dedicated outreach efforts, but I'd really love more detail here. What are these outreach efforts, and what are some of their goals for participation? I mean, really, I would have liked more information on how they're reaching underserved populations through this program, and just more detail on the demographic in general, I think would serve them well for the future. They do mention that they're filling a unique gap with conservatory style training. And I will say that there are a number of pre-professional training opportunities available in the Omaha area for musical theater, but I think that more arts is better for everyone. So, I do appreciate that they are offering these services, and I think that's important. Uh, they mention the translation of materials into Spanish and some bilingual instructors, which is fantastic, but they don't really talk about how that is serving their project or if it's available, but maybe not happening. So more detail on that and how it is being lived out in their program, I think would be helpful. Overall, I feel like this has a lot of potential, but it felt like a lot was in progress. There was a lot of planning, and I think that they even mentioned that they are a newer organization. So I would just say something to keep in mind for the future, providing more detail on what you'd like to do versus what you are planning for this specific project. And I felt like the video letters of support from some of their students were compelling. And that's all from me.
Thank you, Kathleen. Julie, you're our secondary reviewer.
Thank you, Kathleen, for such a complete critique. I agree with the words that she used, in progress. Okay, because that's how I would probably explain the planning and evaluation comments that I have. They show very specific tasks per date and who's responsible for that, which I really appreciated it. And they show clarity in knowing that arts learning expectations by listing the specific fine arts standards. But then I felt they lacked the tools, actually, the measurable tools to measure those goals, stating that it can be difficult to evaluate talent in natural. They brainstormed some ideas in the narrative on how they could go about it, but they did not give a black and white rubric to give value to that impact. So I'd like to see them improve the grant in that way. But a lot of strong things, the artistic quality, what it could do for Omaha. I agree with all those things as Kathleen put out. So those are my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Beatrice, do you have additional comments?
Just very little. This was very thorough, and a lot of the concerns that were raised up and the strength as well. I echo all of them. My suggestion would just be that in the evaluation process, it is based on student evaluation, but maybe the program in itself needs to have some way of being evaluated in order to assess what's the demand that the students need, so that they can supply it a bit better. And though in the outreach and extended outreach and all of that, there were things that were mentioned of like in process or we're doing this, but there's no show of how that has impacted, nor how many scholarships have been awarded and how many bilingual students they're helping. So I think numbers is going to make a huge difference for this application.
Thank you, Beatrice. And Cody, any comments from you?
I echo a lot of what's been said with both the strengths of the application and the questions that have been raised. One of the things I noticed in the grant application is that it talks about well, first of all, one of the strengths is just that it tries to bring a student with musical theater experience, both musically and theatrically, and as well as dance. One of the things I noticed, it had lots of different styles of dance, and they were assessed and then assigned like one particular dance class, but then there was an additional fee if they needed additional dance training. As far as the standards that were listed, the standards that were listed, the citations were incorrect and very difficult to understand. Now, granted, that's where I live, and so that's what I deal with every day. So I would encourage them to do a better analysis and cite the standards correctly, and then also to include those standards in their narration. Just to put a list of letters and numbers at the bottom, I felt led to what everyone else has said as far as the in progress nature. With the budget, one of the things I noticed is that the grant narrative and description says that the project will involve 15 to 35 students, but then the project budget is only reflective for 15 students.
Good job, Cody.
Thank you, Cody. I'll let you review your scores and then let me know when you're completed. Okay, thank you. We had discussed earlier that we would take a short break at the beginning of the hour. And so I think if it's all right with everyone, we will do that and then come back for our two final projects. And Anne, am I correct in usually it's a 5-minute break?
Thereabouts, yeah. What time shall we reconvene?
Do you think about, do you want to do 11 or 12 after, or I don't know how specific you want to be.
You know, personally, I like round numbers. What if we did 10:15? We only
Yeah,
have
that's good.
is that
That's good.
15
That's great.
or 9:15 your time, Jana? Okay, 15 hours.
We will reconvene at 10:15. Please remember to turn off your video and audio, and we'll see you in a bit.
Sam, do you want to start the live stream, the recording again?
Okay, it looks like we're all back. So our next application is from Sonder Productions and their project of the Broadway Academy. Anne, if you'd give us a brief overview, please.
Yes, this SNAC grant will help fund the 13th year of Broadway Academy, a week-long musical theater camp for students ages 13 to 18 years old with an interest in musical theater and performing. 30 to 40 students from Central Nebraska will arrive in Central City, where professional artists from New York and Los Angeles will provide group and individual instruction and mentorship in theater arts and the performing arts industry. The camp culminates with 2 performances at the Central City Performing Arts Center, I bet it is.
Thanks, Anne. Julie, we'll hear from you as our primary reviewer on this proposal.
Great, thank you. It looks like their level of training is for about 40 youth that are 13 through 18. And I looked up all the bios, which all of you read as well, are impressive. So indicating a great degree of artistic quality for this experience for these youth. The selection of the youth are based on auditions, but it's open to any student. Let's see, and then what I like also is the camp culminates then towards the end with the 2 public performances at Central City. And the project is planned in Central Nebraska, shows arts education value because it serves the underserved rural Nebraska community with professional fine arts opportunities. The evaluation process, they were talking about the self-evaluation forms of participants, the pre-camp and post-camp type scores, and that was a good comparison on the spreadsheet. And then they used that data for planning the next year's programming. The final bow process after performances, the students are evaluated by the staff on growth skill and personal development. It is a positive and affirming experience for them. The one thing that in their planning, they used a Word document. Whenever you're trying to finitely compare and have quantitative analysis, I prefer a spreadsheet. So I would like to see them show their planning process where they would document the exact task, the date to be completed by, and who's responsible for the completion of that task. So that's something that I would like to see improved in the spreadsheet. But it's a very, it's a very worthwhile project. I'm just picking at details here. And the budget, they used a spreadsheet, and it looked fine. They do serve the underserved in rural Nebraska with these fine arts opportunities. I'd like to see a special outreach maybe to students with disabilities and or diversity. There's no mention with marketing if they're striving to expand this outreach. They have great partners in Central City with their Chamber of Commerce, the Lead Center for Performing Arts, Holy Grounds, Archer Credit Union, Farm Bureau, Quality Healthcare, and Rathman and Manning Construction. So they're utilizing and trying to expand on engagement for this project. So that's my primary. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Cody is our secondary reviewer.
I enjoyed reading through this grant application and learning about the project. In review of the grant application overall, I felt like it may not necessarily paint a clear picture of what the project is, and that the grant application itself could be perhaps written a bit stronger just to really get a clear picture of what was happening. I appreciated that the project serves rural Nebraska and students in smaller school districts that may not necessarily have opportunities for theater. It took me a while to ascertain in the grant application that it was not to produce a Broadway show or a anything like that, but really to do a review. It wasn't until the support materials that I got the picture that the students were really involved in producing a review at the end. One of the things that I noticed is that there were times where the application contradicted itself. No one had support roles because everyone was able to do a solo, but then later it talks about supporting and being in a support role in another on another student's performance. Also, I noticed that one of the goals was to encourage and enable citizens of rural Nebraska communities to promote the arts, and I'm unsure how exactly the grant project can do that and how they can leverage that as an outcome. I appreciated, like Julie said, the pre and post. I felt perhaps that the arts learning and specific arts learning skills weren't addressed as clearly as perhaps some of the additional learner behavior skills, social emotional learning, and things like that. With the budget, I noticed that there were $325 in PayPal fees, and I wasn't sure exactly what that was for, perhaps the tuition that is charged. I also noticed there wasn't any income for ticket sales. Should there be any? Again, just wasn't real clear on the budget there. And I appreciate that the outreach has been done to rural schools in, and I can never say that word correctly, and in the state. And like Julie said, I wish that there was additional outreach, perhaps to other communities, or identifying perhaps more of the demographics within the communities and how different groups of students are participating within the project could just strengthen the application.
Okay, thank you, Cody. Beatrice, do you have anything else to add?
Everything that's been said have been very thorough. I don't want to just repeat what has been said. I would just point out two things. One, that the program has a lot of potential, I believe, in its educational value. But in trying to strengthen this application, I did notice some spelling errors that were really distracting throughout the application. Just really proofreading and fine-tuning it will go a long way.
Thank you, Beatrice. Kathleen, additional comments?
I echo everything that has been shared. One thing that I did notice is I did appreciate that they mentioned scholarships, I think in a note within their budget, that all who applied were awarded something. And I was just curious how that impacted their budget, if they had included that as a line item in there somewhere. And I have nothing further to add.
Thank you, Kathleen. The panel would adjust or review their scores if needed and let me know when you're finished. Okay. And now that brings us to our final application from the Youth Actors Academy of Lincoln, their summer teen program, Sweeney Todd School Edition. Anne?
So, they call themselves YAAL, so Youth Actors Academy of Lincoln's summer teen production of Sweeney Todd School Edition opens July 24th and runs through July 27th. The 4 performances and 1 understudy performance will be at the Black Box at Y'all's Black Box venue. This tuition-free, audition-based program welcomes teens ages 13 to 18 from Lincoln and surrounding areas. While not all who audition will be cast, crew positions are available. With past success, they anticipate 25 to 30 cast members and 10 crew for Sweeney Todd School Edition, offering a valuable summer theater experience.
Thank you, Anne. Kathleen, you're our primary reviewer.
I thought that this was a really strong application overall. I love that it's a free summer program, and I love that there are opportunities for students to participate both on and off the stage. Uh, One thing that I noticed that could be an opportunity to improve in the future is the narrative almost framed the backstage opportunities as somewhat of a consolation prize. And I feel like based on what they described, it sounded like some exciting creative roles in terms of design and creative crew experiences. So they might want to reframe how they talk about that because there are some students who want to participate in the crew aspect, and it sounds like what they're offering for crew is fairly robust. So maybe just a reframing of that opportunity. Um, it seems that it's filling a gap in teen summer programming, which is great. The teaching artists were strong, and I appreciated that many of them were educators and active theater directors. I felt like the work samples and the production photos were strong. I appreciated that understudies get a dedicated performance because that is something that often gets overlooked. And I also appreciate that they are taking feedback and making changes based on those evaluation responses. Uh, I think that their timeline and their budget were both solid. I would appreciate a little more information on how they're getting the feedback from the students because they are taking that feedback really seriously, which is great. So a bit more detail on the process would be wonderful. In terms of outreach and engagement, I love that it's free and that it's removing that financial barrier to participation. I am a little curious about they mention a carpool sort of situation, and I was just curious how that worked and uh, what the process was for that, and if travel was an issue. Um, uh, I love that they're very inclusive with their casting, uh, and they have some strong partnerships with some solid letters of support from parents and former creative team members. Uh, this feels like it serves the target audience well. Um, and I really appreciate that it's serving students who could not otherwise afford this type of theatrical experience during the summer.
Thanks, Kathleen. Beatrice, you're our secondary reviewer.
All right, so that was very thorough. There was not a lot for me to add, but I do want to emphasize that my biggest note was on the backstage. I imagine that not all students want to be on stage, but the backstage is a lot of opportunities there, so they could expand to classes. And I wonder if students youths can directly apply to be backstage instead of having to go through the whole audition to be in the play and then being given this other position as a consolation prize, as it was said. Um, I really appreciated all the examples that they added on how they have improved the program to best suit the needs of the participants and including the carpool system that they have, because it really shows that they're listening and it being tuition free, plus also given the mode of transport, there's almost like no excuse. But yeah, I think it has potential to grow and be a little bit stronger if emphasized more on more of the learning possibilities.
Thanks, Beatrice. Julie, any additional comments?
I just want to congratulate them on a very strong outreach and engagement area. The partnerships that they have in the Lincoln area are noteworthy. And the only weaknesses Kathleen already talked about in the evaluation area that it'd be nice, to strengthen that in their grant proposal, but it's a very good program. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Julie. And Cody.
I just want to note too what a wonderful application it was to read and an exciting project, and how the project really has developed to be more than just putting on a production, but they're gathering at night, their families are being involved, and so just really robust way to build arts engagement. I agree and echo the concerns about specific arts learning, as well as directly to the crew. The offering that they have for technical theater is amazing, and I think there are students that really enjoy the technical side of things, and so it doesn't always have to be a cast, and then if you aren't cast, you're put in crew type of thing. One of the things I do want to note is that in the letter of support, one of the writers mentioned that they're working with the YAAL to be a luxury, and there was an unspoken partnership between the school. And so that I just want to note those words that were used, because I didn't know if that spoke to the project and really reflected the project as it was presented in the grant application.
Thank you, Cody. Well, that concludes our proposals. And now that all applications have been discussed and scored, I think we'll take a 5-minute break. And during this time, the NAC staff will tally the scores and prepare information for final discussion. And then when the panelists reconvene, we will review the procedures and make final determinations. This final portion of the meeting will be closed to the public. So at this time, we would like to say goodbye to applicants and members of the public who have joined in. And we appreciate you going to YouTube and doing that and hearing the feedback. All grant applicants will be notified by mid-June about the funding decision for your project. So let us, Anne likes round numbers, so we will reconvene at 10:40. That'll give us about 8 minutes for the staff